Do you think you are also part of Japanese?
I do.
Yeah.
Now I've been in America 3 years now, and I've been working on becoming American. Oh, my first wedding was terrifying. I was so scared. My Japanese was not that good yet. I was literally shaking. and the bride and the groom and family are, don't pass out. You can do this. They were so kind. I was terrified.
挑战您的价值观，返璞归真过生活。欢迎收看10万个为什么，我是你的好朋友路德。在节目一开始提醒大家订阅我的频道并打开小铃铛，千万不要错过每周五的精彩节目哦。
So I have 7 kids. They were all born in Japan. They were all raised in Japan. And then they did college and school here in the States. So they left. And unfortunately, my oldest 4 lost their permanent residency because you have to go back. And that's always expensive. Thankfully, my youngest 3 daughters, just this year, it was time. They have to go renew their visa. And of course it's expensive, and should we do it? But they all did it together, and they went kind of this is the first time as an adult to go back to Japan, and they were kind of exploring, do we want to keep our visa, and are we Japanese or not? Or just now we're American. We just talk like Americans now and act like Americans. They went for a couple weeks, and thankfully they discovered that yes, we are American, but we are also part Japanese. And so they're gonna keep their visas, permanent residency, and they're gonna keep that heritage. And to me it was like, that's so good. I want this to be passed on to my family. This is too valuable to just give up. I say that American is kind of a push culture. Japan is more of a pull culture. And I noticed this from the handsaw. So if you go down to the hardware store, you can buy an American handsaw, but it'll cut the wood when you push. So you push and it cuts the wood. A Japanese handsaw is completely reverse. It does not cut when you push, and in fact the saw will, it does not cut. It only cuts when you pull.
Wow.
It's a complete different skill.
That's interesting.
But a Japanese handsaw can cut so perfectly. American handsaw cuts quickly. So if you want to cut a lot of wood, you use an American handsaw, and you can cut board after board. But if you want to cut a few boards perfectly, you use a handsaw, and you pull and pull and pull. Completely different. And then I actually wrote an article on that topic. That's a main difference.
Mentality.
Yeah. American businessmen push. American salesmen push. Japanese, there's a few pushy people, but that's actually rare. Japanese business and salesmen are a pull. It's a pull. It's a continual inviting. Now, if we could bring both together, it would be, it's a strength, both are strength and weakness. So it's again, it took years to discover these. They're just real subtle, but they're completely different.
Yeah.
Very different, yeah.
Yeah. So talking about the identity, I think that's a very important topic. As you living in a foreign country for so many years, was there any crisis of identity when you were in Japan? Like you kind of forget who you are, or you kind of feel lost? Because sometimes I feel the same. When I was in China, when I went back to China, I feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not Chinese anymore. But when I live here, I don't think I'm American either. So I feel like, Who am I? Where do I really belong to?
Yeah.
You know, I feel, of course, you know, when I accept Jesus, I feel, oh, I belong to Jesus. I belong to the kingdom of God. But on earth, I have multiple homes. But which one is my real home? I kind of, you know, feel lost. So I don't know if you have that.
I hadn't thought about that lately, but you're right. It's a continual process. And when I'm in Japan, I'm not called Japanese. I'm called a gaijin. I'm a foreigner. I'm an alien. I have a alien registration.
Yeah.
So I'm, and if I go into a barbershop or in a, they're going to treat me like a foreigner.
Differently, yeah.
In fact, that was why it was so hard to learn about Japanese swords, because I could go into a Japanese sword shop, but they're not going to talk to me. They'd just leave me standing there for hours. It took years, like I said, before they would invite me in. So you're right. There is that continual crisis of identity. Now I'm having it reversed because I don't feel American. I'm learning.
Yeah.
It's coming back. Learning how to drive. We drive on different sides of the roads. So I don't. So yeah, that's a cost. There was a period of time, the middle years, when I would come back to America for a visit. It was never very long, and everything seemed so big. And then you know, a week or two later, I get back to Japan, and everything is so small.
Yes.
The car is small. The milk's carton is small. The house is small. The table is small. The chairs are small.
People are smaller.
People are small. Everything is smaller, and we have this crisis. But there were times when I would literally cry in my sleep, like, oh, I don't want to do this again, because it demanded humility. It demanded me to go low. Yeah. And that's painful.
Yeah. So when you were in Japan, you wanted to be like Japanese, or you wanted to integrate into their society or the culture, but they always see you as a foreigner. They always call you foreigner. So you feel rejection or failure, or what kind of feeling did you
Japanese are very respectful of most foreigners. Not all. I was very lucky. I am white American. They didn't treat all my black American friends that well. Yeah. Challenge for me was they either exalt me and call me sensei, or
that sounds like Chinese 先生.
Yeah.
先生means teacher.
Teacher, master, trainer. Yeah. And it's an exalted position, but you have to be careful because that means you're still not the same. Or they put you under, which my Japanese language ability was never that good compared to a full-on college trained person. So here I'm sitting in a business meeting. I'm on the board of directors, and we're going to make business meetings, but I'm only understanding 70% of the Japanese discussion. I know that. So thankfully, I have Japanese partnerships that I can trust, that we are making good decisions, but I have to recognize that I'm in a lower position. The challenge was I wanted to have an equal place, especially in business and in the church world. And it was probably the most painful in the church world, because in the church world we want to be equals. We want to be the same. We're brother. We call ourselves brothers and sisters in Christ. But that's really hard. So I have many Japanese friends, acquaintances, and a handful of people that adopted us because I got pneumonia. They treat us like family. But in terms of making a friendship where we can just discuss problems and our heart, that actually never happened. Yeah, it's because that means you have to be equal, and I was always either above or below, and so to make a partnership was extremely difficult.
Yeah, they have to also be open-minded and learn your culture and your language, so you can be equal. Otherwise, Yeah, I think even inside of their own society, there is a hierarchy, right? It's not equal. Like
No.
I know I learned a little bit of Japanese. I know the way to say, I don't know, anything. You have different ways.
That's right.
According to your according to your status.
でございます. That's when your the honorific is for.
Yeah, so that really frustrated me because I feel like, oh, this is so complicated. I don't want to treat people in different ways, you know.
You have to.
Yeah, that's their culture. So.
Yeah, and once you get good at it, now I don't know all the levels. I know probably 5. 4 or 5 levels.
Yeah.
So I didn't learn the low. It's kind of the mafia style. I mean, it's really rough and they just growl at each other. I didn't learn that. Okay. I've heard it, and it's really funny. So if I do have an American friend who grew up in Japan, he can completely mimic and hang out with mafia. Okay. I didn't learn that, so I didn't learn the lowest, and I don't know how to talk to the emperor. That's a whole other language. But in the business world, so the irashaimase and de gozaimasu, and I learned, yes, I can learn, so that's very polite, honorific Japanese, but it's still used. So in a wedding, I did weddings, so we use honorific Japanese in weddings, and as well as so there's several layers.
I heard from your daughter that because Japanese people, even though they are not Christian, but they somehow feel like they should get married in the church, and because they watch the movies, or TV show, people get married in the church and it's holy, it's beautiful. So they still want to have a Western pastor to host their wedding. I don't know if it's true, so I feel
many do. It's
I think it's very funny.
It's not historic. It's just recent. It's only, really recent. So very a long time ago, originally the weddings were just civil weddings. You just go to the bride's home, and then the groom's family captures the bride, and then they went to temple weddings for hundreds of years, and then about 150 some they had Shinto, and that lasted for about 150 years. Shinto wedding. The problem with the Shinto wedding is that they use super old Japanese, so no one even knows what they're saying. And they wave the paper flags and they drink sake. And so I don't have a problem with that as a wedding, but literally 40, 50 years ago, so we're after World War II, well after World War II, Sound of Music movie. She's got the wedding dress. She's got the beautiful church, and the Japanese culture had begun to come into prosperity. So all of a sudden, people have some money to spend on a wedding. They didn't have money to spend on a wedding, so it didn't exist until 40, 50 years ago, and it was primarily due to one pastor in Tokyo. Who had a vision, and so he created a simple Japanese wedding, and that Japanese wedding lasted just exactly word for word. That Japanese wedding lasted for at least 30 years. I've done thousands of them. We sing "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." In Japanese, we read from 1 Corinthians 13, love is patient, love is kind, in That's Japanese. We use 1 John passage about love, and very simple, but we give a blessing in Japanese as well, and then a message, and then the vows. Oh, my first wedding was terrifying. I was so scared. My Japanese was not that good yet. I was literally shaking, and the bride and the groom and family are, don't pass out, you can do this. They were so kind. I was terrified, and it took a long time to get over.
You were more nervous than the groom.
Absolutely, they were nervous for me, but not for themselves. But the truth of the matter is, it started out doing 2 or 3 weddings a week.
Wow.
Which seems like a lot by American standards, but very soon I was doing 2 or 3 weddings a day, but their weddings are only on weekends and holidays. And then you have there's superstition, so there's good days and bad days. So you don't have any weddings on the bad days. And then you can have, it's possible to have 10 weddings on a good day because everybody wants to get married on a good day.
So what is a good day? Why is a good day?
Let's see if I can remember the word. So butsumetsu, that's the bad day. It's a bad day just means it's
So they have a calendar?
They have a calendar. It's Buddhist.
Like
it's Buddhism.
Oh,
it's straight from Buddhism.
Yeah. Chinese also have that.
So it's the same thing, and it rotates. I think it's like 8 days or something. So it's always shifting. So it's not on the calendar. So every month you'll have at least one Sunday and one Saturday that will be a butsumetsu, which means that's a bad day for a wedding. Yeah, so little by little, so I started learning how to do weddings, and then next thing you know, we had a situation who the Japanese pastor, who was also the owner of the wedding company, there were only about 10 or 6 of us, 5 or 6 when I started. It grew a little bit, and then he passed away, and we had to create our own company. By this time, that was very, very fascinating to learn about. So I did thousands of weddings.
Wow. But most of them are not Christian, right?
Most of them are not.
They are not Christian. But you
we get to bless them.
Yeah, you still read the scripture and
read the
worship
scripture.
Jesus.
And most Japanese people have not decided about their faith, their religion. There are some people that are truly Buddhists, and there are some people that are truly Shintoists. So every now and then I'd have a full-on Buddhist priest that's a family member, so he has to come to the wedding, and some of them are very respectable, but some of them were kind of offended. And so of course, again, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I also want to be respected. So I would say the same words, but I would try to do it in a respectful way.
When you do the speech, did you kind of share the gospel, or what do you talk about?
I had many different messages. Obviously, when I was in training, I only had one message, and finally I just couldn't stand to give that one message even one more time. Yeah, it's like, literally after 1,500 times, it's like, I've got to have another message. So eventually, then I played with many different messages, but most of my favorite messages had something to do with just marriage. And without a doubt, the Christian church, we have a lot of teaching on marriage. Especially here in America, Focus on the Family teaches us about family. So I took a lot of those messages and translated them into Japanese, kept them very, very simple. It was extremely difficult. That was one of the most difficult things in we're trying to bring the gospel message, which is a foreign message to the Japanese people. But we have to do it in a way that's respectful and helpful for their culture. Thankfully, I got pretty good at it after several thousand mistakes. And I have so many funny stories, but I don't know that we want to go down that track, but yeah. But I wasn't trying to convert anyone in a wedding. I was trying to bless them. And so that's why even before the wedding, I would try, if possible, to stand by the door to greet every single guest and make eye contact and omedetou gozaimasu. And I'm wanting to start with that greeting before the wedding ever starts, so that when I come in and I make an entrance, I'm the sensei, so I usually make a grand entrance and the music is playing and everybody's and I'm in a full-on robe. Full-on robe.
Catholic.
Yep. We took kind of like the Catholic priest, and I have more than one robe. My favorite was a black robe with purple sash. I have white robes and different colored robes, but that was my favorite one. But that's why the greetings ahead of time, I'm just a regular person, you're a regular person, but in the wedding, we don't act like regular people. This is a formal occasion because we are bringing a blessing to this couple. And honestly, nearly 100% of Japanese people are very, very respectful and gave honor to that. So actually, during their peak years, we were more than 80. We went up to more than 80% of all weddings were Christian weddings. So it did happen, and dozens of times I would just be down in Osaka. Osaka's huge, city, millions of people. But there's not that many. There's a few hundred of us who do weddings, but literally less than a few hundred. And we are doing so many thousands of weddings, and there are literally usually about 50. The average wedding has 50 guests. So that means I literally spoke in front of 500,000 people, 500,000.
Yeah.
So they recognize me. I don't recognize them. So I can even be in a store and someone will come up to me, Sensei, did you do our wedding? And so, that was, our company, our business, I no longer part of the company, but they continue. Since COVID, the weddings have dropped in half, I suppose. And now people are going more and more to what we call a civil wedding. It's very simple. There's no religion at all. So it's just a window. Basically a 40-year window. But during that 40-year window, every Japanese person would have gone to a wedding. So, because of your aunts and uncle, grandparents, somebody in your family had a Christian wedding.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. So you, at the beginning, you wanted to really embrace their culture, their history, their identity, everything. And then you experience some kind of rejection because you feel like you can never really be accepted as a Japanese.
Yeah, that's right.
So, and then you started this wedding business, and actually you play a role of a foreigner because people see you as a foreigner. They won't see you as a Japanese at all. Because
not during weddings. I'm the foreigner.
Yeah, because they want to have a American pastor. It sounds very romantic or whatever, exotic. So, and you just accept who you are.
Yeah, and
you don't strive to be a Japanese anymore.
Yeah, it was really helpful.